This video is going to cover Unit 3 and Unit 4 of the ASL Skills Development book. Unit 3 starts with lexical substitution. And what it basically is saying is the more fluent you are in any language, then the easier it is for you to become a user of the language, to use synonyms, antonyms, idioms, to replace words in a given message without changing the meaning. The more vocabulary that you have in any given language, the more a dynamic speaker you can be. In the case of sign language, the more dynamic signer that you can be. Really, the user of any language, the more intralingual skills that you have, it's really the more in depth you can go with a language when you're having a conversation. And so developing that skill, that ability to replace words without changing the meaning and without changing a message, really increases your linguistic fluency. And this skill is really important when you're doing simultaneous interpreting, because your brain has to be processing on the fly almost. And that ability to quickly find a different way to express an idea in order to match the consumer, match the audience, match the need, it's really an important skill of the simultaneous interpreting process. Example, the word for teacher. What can we think about when we think about this word? An educator, a person standing in front of a room. In my case, I'm in front of a computer teaching on Zoom. Are we teaching live? Are we teaching pre-recorded? Those concepts behind the word teacher and what a teacher can mean. Does it mean a K-12 teacher, a college teacher? Does it mean the teacher of a workshop, a teacher of a privately held business versus a public entity? This word can really mean so many things and go in so many different directions. And so the idea behind understanding the ability to have that skill to substitute words is really to think, when you see that word teacher or hear the word teacher, is of all the various directions it can go, and not have just a limited view of what the message could possibly be. Because if you have a limited view, you have a potential of missing it. So why is it important to have such a skill in the ability to use lexical substitution? I'll give you a second to read. Well, we know it's really important, a really important part of the interpreting process, to be able to think on the fly. He said it this way, I'll sign it this way. It's as much a part of being understood as it is a part of, does that translate clearly into the way I want to sign it? Again, it increases that flexibility that you have in the language. And it also comes back to that understanding that one sign can hold various concepts, and it provides you with the tools that you have in your toolbox to pull from to be able to provide that message to the consumer. And again, it goes back to building your intralingual skills. Another thing that's really important is illocutionary force. If you've been listening to the interpretations I've been posting, I use this a lot. I use it to make a very clear voice interpretation. For me, I feel that the way that I can be understood, or the way that I could render the message the way I see it, is by using inflection and tone. And I do the same thing in sign language. In order to be understood, I use facial expression and body movement and gestures. And really, it comes down to that's an indicator of a good interpretation because it keeps the dynamics of the source language being the first language the message comes in, keeping all its nuances and delivering it in that way is using illocutionary force. And when it really comes down to the receiver of the interpretation, the consumer, be it the hearing person getting the voice interpretation or the deaf person getting the sign interpretation, they're receiving the message in an equivalent fashion to the way a person receiving it in its original form would receive it, meaning they react the same way. They get it and react in the same proper fashion. And what it comes back down to also is if that original message was intended to be ambiguous, then your job as an interpreter is to offer the same level of ambiguity. Your job is not to correct somebody's words or to clear up a misunderstanding. And if we go back to the idea of subtext and the question that we had been raising about a professor asking, "Are you sure you want to turn this in?" In our discussion, a lot of you said, when I asked the question, "How would you interpret that?" A lot of you said facial expression. That's exactly it. Facial expression. That's our primary role, is to pass on the message so that the receiver is having the same experience, that same aha moment, and the same ability to respond and react. And so this becomes important because with illocutionary force, the intonation that we use in English, we can really understand if something is a statement, a command, a question. We can understand the seriousness of a situation based on that vocal tone. And in English, again, we use intonation to indicate that. For example, these statements. I'm going to say them as you should understand them. You mad? You're mad? You're mad. You're mad. I just said that in 4 different ways to mean 4 different things. And it was all just in the intonation that I used. In ASL, instead of intonation, we use non-manual grammatical markers. So, one of the questions for you to respond to will be, and excuse my typo, but how would you sign these 4 same statements the way I verbalize them? Submit a video for that. So paraphrasing preposition comes back to the idea that it's possible to find one or more concept for each word, each preposition, or each idea unit. And how do we think about that is we've all seen the example of run. Run, runny nose, running water, running machine or factory, etc. And picture. Take a picture. Here's a picture. Picture this. Free, meaning is that free no cost or free as in available? So as an interpreter, you're hearing, "Are you free Saturday?" But you're not saying, "Are you free Saturday?" You're signing the concept. You're interpreting it to an understandable message. And so you interpret that to be, are you free Saturday? That's paraphrasing. We saw in our interpreter observation with Nicole Pensino, we saw how she did that in order to render an effective message for a highly visual deaf population, for atypical language users. So I'll give you a second to read this third bullet. So it involves a conversion of a message, are you free Saturday, to the given language with the equivalent message, are you available Saturday, worded differently. I'll give you a second to read that. And again, this is the same as in your ASL skills development book as the So You Want to Be an Interpreter book. The reason I put it here is to emphasize that it's a standard understanding. The interpretation is successful when the dynamic equivalence is maintained. It means, again, the same way that any other person receiving the message in its original form would react and understand it, you're providing that equivalence. Are you sure you want to turn in that paper? You guys can't see my facial expression because I'm turned up to the side, but I'm completely giving it to you right here. And so your book mentions unpacking prepositions. So within each word, we talked about it's possible to find more than one concept. We talked about the word teacher. In a preposition, the man is speaking to a student. Let's unpack it. What could be there? There's a man, there's a student. The man may be a teacher. The student may be his student. And so these are all possibilities of where this could go. That ability to paraphrase becomes really important in interpreting, because active voice and passive voice. I'm going to show you some examples. Here's some phrases in active voice. Easy to sign. Monkeys adore bananas. The cashier counted the money. The dog chased a squirrel. But in passive voice, when you hear that, it's very difficult to sign something spoken in passive voice. It's like flipped. Bananas are adored by monkeys. I would still go back to monkeys adore bananas in order to render that in a clear way in sign language. So that ability to use lexical substitution and paraphrasing helps you when hearing passive voice speech. And so it comes down to this. We have to learn different ways of saying things and different ways of signing things. You got to have it all. And if you look at the example of Steve Sandy, the embarrassing experience, or exercise 2.2, if you notice the way he's signing, he's code switched. He's throwing us a lot of English things. Booked, late, finger spelling, really fast and really sloppy, really hard to catch. But he's doing that to adjust to us. And now we have to adjust to that. because that way we both kind of meet at a certain place. If we don't have the skill and that range to be able to do that, we couldn't be a successful interpreter. So we have to always continue, not just to improve our English skills, our spoken English skills, but also our sign skills and that ability to say it differently, pick different signs, pick different ways. That doesn't make it wrong, still right, but just a different way of saying things. That's where the practice comes in. So before I end, fun fact, my favorite color is red.